powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios, it's Football at 4.
And Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It's brought to you by Bet365. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Our Eagles keyword this hour. Here is the next keyword. Remember this keyword for the end of the hour when I ask it. And text in the keyword is penny. All right? Penny is the keyword for the 4 o'clock hour. Adam Caplan's here, co-host of the Inside the Birds podcast, which you can find on any podcasting platform or on their YouTube channel. Just search Inside the Birds. Well, we've got a lot of Eagles news today, including Adam Caplan. 2 signings, a familiar face and a familiar name. Josiah Scott is back, but so is potential Hall of Fame wide receiver Julio Jones. Whoa, baby.
Yeah,
Julio Jones is here.
Yeah, Julio Jones is going to go to the practice squad. It's kind of funny the way this is going to work out, so we'll explain it. Julio Jones, I don't know. I haven't got their workout list today. I would hope they would have worked him out to see what kind of physical shape he's in, but because they did work out some receivers yesterday. But nevertheless, they did sign him to their practice squad today. Now, what they'll do is they'll evaluate it where he is from a conditioning standpoint, and when they think he's ready, he'll be brought up. Now, with Quez Watkins on the injured reserve list and Olamide Zaccheaus is the 3, they don't have a 4. And they also, what it is Julio Jones is what we call an X-receiver. Not that you would ask him to play a lot. He can't. He's not capable of doing that at his advanced age. But once they think he's ready to go, and look, I'm not going to say he can't play this week. We'll learn more later this week. We'll talk about this Friday. We'll see how he does in practice. But the fact of the matter is, when you look at the situation for Julio Jones, he's a guy that could play the X-receiver position, which is A.J. Brown's position. He knows Olamide Zaccheaus, obviously, from their days with Atlanta. They're familiar with him from their personnel staff because they've scouted him for years. Mike, I think you were kind of alluding to that. It's a guy that they know. Sirianni, he hasn't been with Sirianni before, but they know this player. He's probably going to be a Hall of Famer someday, and at this advanced stage, you're not asking him to play a lot. You might get 50 to 20 snaps a game from him. But here's the thing, Mike. He's just under 6'3", and we know how bad the red zone offense has been this season. And eventually, you think he could probably help him there.
Right. So I guess if people hear Julio Jones, he did not have a very good year last year at 299 yards playing in Tampa with Tom Brady. You're not looking for Hall of Fame Julio Jones. This seemingly is red zone target slot guy. Is that what you're seeing?
He's not really a slot receiver. He's an X receiver, which is Julio Jones, which is where A.J. Brown plays. Now, could he line up inside occasionally? Sure. You motion him to the slot? Yes, you can do that, but that's not really what he is. He's a big physical pass target. Now, I will tell you this. When he was with the Bucs, I was at their training camp in 2022, and I was very surprised at how good he looked. Now, they didn't use him. They used him occasionally. He was in their rotation. But talking to someone who's coached him in the past, you can't put a lot on him. You can't give him a lot of responsibility because he's not the same player he once was. So, Mike, let's move on from this in a second here. But if used the right way in a very minor role, he certainly could help them because they really need someone to come off the bench that could make some plays that's got some size, and we know he's got both.
All right, Josiah Scott's back as well. What's the messaging there?
Yeah, so they look, Bradley Roby got hurt. He has a shoulder injury. We don't know about his availability. We know their slot positions has been an absolute hot mess this season after Avonte Maddox got hurt. So Josiah Scott's a slot corner. That's what he does. He's played both in his career, but he's a slot now only. Oh, and by the way, this is interesting. I've not heard this before, but I checked it in to make sure it was correct. So he was not only in their practice squad, Mike, he was on their practice squad injured list, which I didn't even know you could sign a guy off a practice squad like that, but I'm told you can, and they did. So he's on their 53-man roster, and they'll get a look at him this week to see when he'll be available. And again, if he's healthy enough, wouldn't rule out playing this week. And that's it, Mike. I mean, Howie really shook it up here. I was not expecting, again, as I said, they worked out receivers yesterday. I'll have their workout list in the next hour, but I wonder who else they worked out, if they worked at anyone else at all.
Yeah.
In terms of receiver position today.
Inquiring minds would like to know, yes, because they lost the game, but they lost a lot. They are banged up, and one of the things about last year, Adam, was they made it to the finish line almost clear of injury, but they're very banged up here. So let's take a look at some of the injuries and the impact they're having. You look back the last couple of weeks here, they've played with a lot of different names.
Yeah, this is crazy. So, Mike, right before we go on and update some injuries, if you go back, they had a bye in Week 7 last year. If you look at Week 6 or 8, every inactive was healthy. They were all guys who were not going to play. They're not going to contribute, so they were inactive. Where now you have so many guys hurt, they don't even know, Mike, this is Tuesday. They don't practice till tomorrow. They have a general idea who might be available and not available, but they don't know for sure. So let's take a look at it. We know Quez Watkins went on injured reserve on Saturday. He's got to serve 3 more games on injured reserve. Cam Jurgens went on in Week 5, so he's got to serve 4 games. That's the way it works. It's not. I'm just giving you the weeks that he's going to miss. So he's got to miss this week and next week. Then he's eligible to come back. Lane Johnson, they thought the injury was much worse. It looked much worse, but thankfully he's day to day, as I understand it. It's a basketball sprain. They'll see. They don't know yet. You know, Lane's going to take. He's going to try. We're going to talk more about this on the information we're going to get tonight on Inside the Birds tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. Eastern. Defensively, Jalen Carter. They don't know about him. He's got the ankle injury. Marlon Tuipulotu, another backup D tackle, who's definitely in the rotations, had some good snaps. Missed the last 2 weeks with a triceps injury. They don't know about him yet. Darius Slay, don't know yet. He didn't play last week's game. That was a Wednesday pop-up on the injury report. Didn't know about that. He came out of the game with that. Bradley Roby came out of this past game with his shoulder injury. Don't know about him. Eli Ricks, by the way, he got hurt in the game. We'll see about his status. Reed Blankenship, Mike, his second ribs injury. He missed one earlier this season. He got blindsided with that rib hit, as you know. I'm sure you saw it. So he didn't return. We don't know about his status. Sidney Brown was close to playing last week. Don't know about this week with the hamstring. He's missed 3 straight games. Justin Evans, he went on IR right before the week ended. He's got to serve 3 more games on that. So, Mike, they are so banged up, particularly on defense. All 3 levels of their defense have been impacted. And this is a problem when you're trying to get back to where you were last year when you're the Eagles. Depth is an issue, and I would fully expect them, as we get closer to the trade deadline, which is, by the way, 2 weeks exactly from today at 4 p.m. Eastern, do everything they can to add depth in the secondary.
Yeah, Halloween Day is the NFL trade deadline. Adam Caplan, Inside the Birds podcast and InsideTheBirds.com. So, yeah, it was my biggest fear going into the season. It wasn't talent. It wasn't anything other than can they get through another season healthy? They are banged up. One guy who missed 4 games was back. That's Nakobe Dean. So, when he came back, what did we see? What was his role?
Boy, this is interesting. So we had reported on Inside the Birds pregame that we were told that Dean would not start. We didn't know how they were going to handle him. Well, we got our answer. They went with a timeshare between him and Nick Morrow. Morrow started. They played situationally. We're going to take a deeper look into sort of the role for each guy. But that was interesting, Mike. We'll see when Dean gets a starting job back. He will eventually. It's just, is it this week? Is it 3 weeks from now? We have no idea. They'll work through that, but he was healthy. That was the big thing. And Morrow's been a great story. So, look, it's not the way they wanted to do it, but the good thing is, Mike, they now know that Nick Morrow could help them. They didn't know before the season because they cut him, but he got pressed in the service, and a pretty good story there.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that kind of evolves, I guess. It should be a fluid situation, I would guess, moving forward here. How about a quick look at the Dolphins and some of the injuries that they have as we're looking at so many injuries, because this might be a big storyline going into Sunday night.
Yeah, it is, and they're not deep at corner at all. These are big. So Xavier Howard, their top corner, has got a groin injury. He got hurt in the game against the Panthers last week. After they got down 14-0, and people are like, what in the world is with them? But they wound up covering the spread. So they don't know about him this week. Now, Jalen Ramsey, who they made a trade for to start opposite him, he hasn't played this season. He had meniscus surgery. Now, he's vowed to come back earlier than the 3 to 4 month projection when you have the surgery, not the trim. This is actual procedure. So he's going to return to practice soon. They don't have an exact timeline for him. But, again, they're banged up a corner, so that does favor the Eagles, who we don't want to throw the football. Devin Achane, who's been a great story, who was leading the NFL in average per carry, He went on injury reserve last week with a knee injury, so he won't be here. It's going to be all former Eagle Raheem Mostert is their starting running back right now.
Yeah, he's been a pretty good player for both Miami and San Francisco, and obviously the Dolphins. I want to get your opinion on this, Adam. We talked about this yesterday. So you got the Dolphins, high-flying offense, a lot of points, a lot of fun. You can make a strong case that the Eagles are every bit as talented in terms of skill players. Their offensive line is better than Miami. So why is Miami this high-flying offense and the Eagles are kind of clunky?
Because they don't have Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle. Really, Tyreek Hill is the most dangerous receiver in the National Football League. I've seen him up close, practice. Over the last 2 years, he's basically unguardable. Yes, you're right, Mike. They don't have a very good offensive line, but Tua Tagovailoa, their quarterback, when he gets rid of the ball quickly, he's really tough to stop. When he holds on to the ball, he gets hit. That's what's happened to him in previous years. So far, it's not happened. So, look, they've got Jalen Waddle, but particularly Tyreek Hill. They don't use the tight ends at all. They got Robbie Anderson, former Temple star receiver, who's in their rotation. Cedric Wilson. Chase Claypool probably will not play. He's their sixth receiver they acquired from Chicago, who's a big guy. But the bottom line is they've got tremendous speed at receiver. The fastest wide receiver tandem in the National Football League. I'm so fascinated with the way the Eagles will play these guys this week.
Oh, yeah, definitely. A lot of motion. The Dolphins have a lot of motion. 60% of the time they have motion. These are the two biggest downplay threats, Hill and Brown. They're number 1 and they're number 2 since 2022 on go routes and deep fades. Hill has 556 yards, Brown 587. So Brown has actually been a big play receiver. But they're just different. A fast, shifty guy, and Brown is a big physical guy.
Tyreek Hill is the most explosive player in the National Football League at receiver. He's unguardable. He absolutely humiliated the Eagles 2 years ago in his last year with the Chiefs. If you remember, Mike, here in Philly, that was crazy because they tried everything and he just ran scot-free. So it's going to be a fun matchup. That game is Sunday night. We'll see. It's supposed to rain over the weekend.
Ooh.
We'll see if it clears up.
All right. We'll talk more about that matchup on Friday with Adam Caplan, co-host of Inside the Birds podcast, which you can find on any podcasting platform or on their YouTube channel. Just search Inside the Birds. Thanks, Adam.
Thank you.